Hello, everyone. Caleb, that's a little loud. Happy Sabbath. Thank you for such a good international Sabbath so far. I have the honor to talk about Europe, and I'm going to be a little biased because I'm going to talk about my country of Ukraine. Ukraine, I'll show you a map in 2 seconds, located in Eastern Europe, where I was born 23 years ago. I don't think this clicker's working. Maybe. Hopefully. No? Jasmine, if you could please go to the next slide. Thank you. Ukraine, which is located in Eastern Europe, has a strong Adventist population with over 40,000 members and 800 congregations, which has tripled in the last decade. If you could go to the next slide, please. On February 24th, 2022, Russia invaded my country. And this invasion and the war that has been going on up to this point has caused over 1 million casualties, unfortunately, on both sides. And then even though the war officially started in 2022, most people might not know, but conflict has been going on there since 2014. If you could go to the next slide, please. With war come hardships, but that does not mean that the regular issues of life have disappeared from people's lives. So today I want to share with you 6 stories of how God's children in Ukraine are going out and serving others with perseverance and love. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start today in the city of Talne, the Cherkasky Oblast. If you could go to the next slide, please. We have all experienced a level of dysfunctionality in our lives, but as children, where can you turn? This was the founding principle of a group called Druzhbalandia, which translates to Friendship Land. And so what they did was, in the city, they went around on a bus and they started to pick up 6 kids for church. And every Sabbath, they would pick up more and more kids, and eventually they had to upgrade and make more room on that bus. Why? If you could go to the next slide, please. Because now 120 kids were coming to church every single Sabbath, starting from 6. They were eating warm meals, finding comfort, participating in Bible studies, getting baptized, and finding a family in God's church. If you could go to slide 8, please. The next story, we are looking in Kharkiv and Kherson, which have been 2 of the hottest regions of the war. Despite this massive obstacle that Satan threw their way, God's children persevered. If we could go to the next slide. 23 new schools were built in these cities, even in time of war, offering a Christian education to 443 students. Next slide, please. In my hometown of Chernivtsi, a rehabilitation center has been established by ADRA Ukraine. They help children whose parents have lost their lives, unfortunately, in the conflict. They utilize advanced therapies and different psychological treatments in order to help these children, and these workers are using their God-given talents in order to help those around them, despite the difficult circumstances. Speaking of the difficult circumstances that ADRA goes through, they have been victims of multiple drone strikes while they have worked inside of Ukraine. Some being injured, some vehicles being destroyed, resources centers being hit. But despite all of this, using God's strength, they've continued to persevere through. One example of this perseverance is a church in Donetsk, which has been occupied and has been at the front line since 2014. A church there was supposed to have a harvest festival celebration, and a week before the harvest festival celebration, there was a bit of an artillery barrage. Their church roof was damaged, and now the church was not able to be used for the service. Not wanting this to stop their service, where they were supposed to have many attendees, the church members, as you can see in the picture, a lot of them elderly, banded together and fixed the roof of the church in less than 1 week in order for it to be opened for that Sabbath festival, where 120 people managed to attend. Now, if we go to the last slide, this is Oksana. She was living in Bucha, which is a suburb right next to the capital of Kiev. So I just wanted to share her story with you today to close out. So Bucha, when the initial assault on February 22nd happened, she was in a place where the Russians sent a heavy assault. They went through the town, they were killing a lot of civilians, there was heavy fighting, it was a difficult, difficult time. So Oksana and 6 others managed to find refuge in a basement where they were hiding and just praying, hoping for somebody to come save them. Oksana and the 6 others were not believers, and the only thing that she could think of doing was to pray the only prayer that she knew, Our Father who art in heaven. As they prayed, they heard a car arriving. Not knowing whether this was the enemy or not, they could only wait patiently to see if their prayer had been answered. Thankfully, God did answer their prayer. This car was an evacuation force, a group of Adventist pastors gathering whatever civilians they could to safety. They brought them to the Ukrainian Adventist Theological Institute, where they were provided with warm meals and spiritual support. There were over 200 impacted refugees being taken care of at this institute. After the woman, Oksana, spoke with a pastor who helped in the center, she found that even though she was grateful for the food and the help provided, what she found the most helpful was the spiritual food that her pastors and those around her provided to her. Unfortunately, the heavy fighting required the entire center to have to evacuate again. With God's protection, they made it to Kiev and then to Chernivtsi. Despite the difficult circumstances, Oksana was extremely happy to have found what she had been searching for, she said, her whole life, and that was God. She reconnected with the pastor who helped her initially in that center, and they went on a humanitarian mission back to Bucha. And then, during this drive, she was asking all the church members, tell me more about God, tell me how to pray, tell me how to not be afraid. And what she found is it just needed a little bit of time, a little bit of studying, a little bit of perseverance. And after this time, after going through the struggles that she went to, after praying, after learning, after being eager to find God, after seeing how God helped her, she and her son were going to get baptized, and they did. And I could close with a quote from her. She said, "If not for the war, I don't know what else could have brought me to Jesus, and I am extremely thankful." If we could go to the last slide. All these stories and the experience happening not only in Ukraine but all around the world, because we all have difficult things that we go through, reminds me of Romans 5, verses 3 and 4, where it says, "Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." I hope some of you were able to find inspiration in these stories, that no matter the suffering, we could have hope in Jesus and endure to continue the work that he has called us to do. Thank you. And now I think we're going to play a video about South America, North America, bundled it all together. I think Ardonics put something nice for us together. I'm just going to wait for Jasmine.